Good morning. we invite you to please rise in body or spirit to sing our opening song. This is Come, Come, Whoever You Are. We'll sing it a couple of times in English, a couple of times in Spanish, and once back in English. These are the words of 13th century Persian poet Rumi, leader of the early Sufi movement in Islam. They were set to music by the Reverend Lynn Unger. Here we go. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come. Ven, ven, cual eres, ven. No me dejan búsquedas, llevas la vida, la nuestra es la cara en amor. Ven, otra vez ven. Ven, ven, cual eres, ven. No me dejan búsquedas, llamas la vida, la nuestra es la caravana de amor. Ven, otra vez ven. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come.
Good morning, and welcome to the Mount Diablo Unitarian Universalist Church, where we are defying weather reports and convening. I'm the Reverend Leslie Takahashi, and my pronouns are she and her. And for those of you who are visiting with us this morning, welcome. And those who are back after a long absence, we are so glad to have you back here today with us. We are glad that everyone has chosen to spend part of their morning on this beautiful lull between the storms with us here in the sanctuary, in the Borton Hall, or if you're online with us this morning, we're glad to have you. We will have a coffee hour after the service here on campus, and for those of you online, we will have a virtual coffee hour on campus for 15 minutes after the service so that you can say hello. If you're visiting, we hope you'll sign a visitor's card either in the hall or online as well. That helps us follow up and make sure that you can get connected to us. If you are thinking about membership, we will have our next book signing for our membership on the first Sunday of the month, and we will also have a class next month that will be the third Saturday, I believe, where you can called Connecting You and MDUUC 101. So look for that if you're interested in learning more. For those of you in need of a listening ear, our pastoral caring listeners will be at the bowl when we do the dropping of the stones during our offertory, and you will be able to identify them, and feel free to ask for some time after the service today. We are really grateful to have you here, and we hope that you will mark your calendar for some upcoming events, including the weekend of March 9th, the Saturday. We're having our fellowship event in the evening, And that's a wonderful time, and we hope you'll be here to celebrate with us. And we're very grateful. Welcome to this beloved community.
Good morning. I'm Sharon Solstice. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm a member of our Board of Trustees. Mount Diablo Unitarian Universalist Church is a welcoming faith community. We begin our service by reading our mission statement together. We bring to life our Unitarian Universalist values as we seek truth and work for justice, nurture compassion and courage, reach out to each other and to our larger community of faith, bridge the divisions that wound the human family, transform ourselves and our world. February is a great time to get involved. Check out the weekly email and the Beacon newsletter for the many, many things that are happening here. We're so glad to have you with us. Our expectation is that those who are attending in person have no symptoms of any of the communicable diseases that are going around. Thank you for honoring this commitment to keep one another safe. Couple announcements. Please attend the congregational meeting that's today here in the sanctuary at 12:15. Sorry. Please attend the congregational forum today at 12:15. Lots of exciting things happening at MDUUC. And also, the board is accepting nominations for our annual MDUC Award that'll be given out at the fellowship dinner on March 9th. And welcome. It's good to be together.
Good morning. It's the tradition in this church to share the plate monthly, and the beneficiary of Share the Plate this morning is Hope Solutions, which is Contra Costa County's leading caregiver to the something like 10,000 plus homeless amongst us. We serve over a third of those. Hope Solutions actually has a tradition here. Mary Fenelon, a former board member, beloved member of this church to this day, was my predecessor on the board of Hope Solutions, and she's the one who got me interested. Bill Wastenberg is very active as a volunteer. Hope Solutions was founded in 1997 by about 24 faith groups, and it has continued. It started as Contra Costa Interfaith Housing. Its primary aim is to reduce homelessness by providing longer-term housing services, but it recognizes that a roof, a home, is still not enough. It requires two critical services, especially in the modern age. One of them is mental health care, which it provides via professional services on site, and the other is that there are a great many children among the homeless, and when they get home from school, they need help and tutoring and mentoring with their homework, and it provides that service as well. I ran high-tech companies, and growth was a great thing. I'm sad to say Hope Solutions has grown as a board member, because that means that the demand for our services has absolutely skyrocketed. We grew 38%, which in a for-profit company would be terrific. In a nonprofit that tries to help the homeless, that has a backside of the sword that is very serious. We all prioritize our philanthropy, and we have to. There are many demands for it. For Sue and me, Hope Solutions, trying to end homelessness, is become one of the top two, along with this church. I urge you to think deeply about this problem among us and be generous as you make your contributions. Many thanks.
This is the time when we exchange greetings, and because we are grateful for this beautiful day, we should exchange greetings and say it's great to see you on this lovely lull between the storms. I'm going to invite our children and youth and those young at heart to come up and join me here on the steps because I need their help figuring something out. Good morning. Yeah, we're going to go this way, Jameson. We're going to keep people, yeah. We're trying to make it so that the person who's lighting the chalice actually can have a path to do that. So, yeah, come on, keep going that way. There we go. That's great. It's great to have this issue of crowding. Yeah, we're happy about that. It's really wonderful to see all of you. So I'm Leslie, and I don't usually get to sit on the steps with you, so I'm particularly glad to be here today. And I wanted to say that I needed your help because today we're going to talk about how sometimes when we're confronted with things that we don't expect, how we make decisions about them. So I wonder if anyone notices anything that's unusual. Yeah, Atticus, what do you see? You were the first to point. That thing right there, yeah. Does anyone know what that thing is called? Yeah, Axel? A ladder, okay. So Axel and Atticus were right on point to find that we have a ladder in our congregation. So I'm going to invite us in our moment of mindfulness to think about what we think of when we see that there is a ladder in the middle of our dais here. I'm just going to ask you to think about it for a second. I'm going to ask you to think, so when we see ladders, sometimes we think about what? What do we think about? Up and down? Exactly, yes. Yes, and, yeah? Painting and decorating, right? So do you think we might be painting or decorating? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Princess? Putting a star in a tree. What a great thing. Yeah, Ben? Not going under it. That's good. So that's right. Thank you, Ben. That's a really good idea. Okay, we're going to let Atticus one more idea. A disco ball. Okay. So, based on our previous experience, we may be about to have a disco ball or a whole group going around a ladder instead of under it, or a lot of other things, up and down practice. There's lots of things. So I'm going to invite you to hold that thought, and then I'm going to invite you to do one other thing, which is to think about maybe something different, that maybe this ladder is up here for a different reason. Maybe it's not the reason that you thought of before. Okay, with that, I'm going to ask you to wait. We're going to get back to it in our Time for All Ages, but first we're going to light our chalice.
Good morning. I'm sorry. Good morning. I assume you can listen to me now. Good morning. My name is Angela Canistraro. My pronoun is she and her. Our opening words today are from Isaac Asimov, and our assumptions are our window of the world. Scrub them off every once in a while, or the light won't come in.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So now we're at our Time for All Ages, and I'm going to invite our wonderful student chaplain, Travis, to help me in just a minute. But first, I'm going to invite us to look again at this ladder, right? It's a ladder. And I'm going to invite us to think about all the things that you gave, which were really good ideas. Those were all really things you already have experience with ladders. And actually, you know why this ladder is up here? This ladder is up here. Oh, you have another idea why it's up here, Neil? To hang signs on, exactly. Because this ladder is going to help us tell our Time for All Ages. So good demonstrating, thinking outside the box about this ladder. All right. Travis is going to help us start our story here. It's a story about what might happen if someone was asked to help with picking a gift for a sibling. And these signs are also in our slides. So Travis is going to take us through them.
Okay, so we will start the way we often start with ladders at the bottom and move our way up. So here we see something that says, something that is real. Do you see what it is that's real here?
Does anyone know what that thing is that's real?
Yeah?
Yep, we can just,
A
everyone was
cat.
calling it out.
Great.
Yeah.
A lot of people see it. And then something else that's real. A dog. Yeah. Okay, so let's say we are really appreciative of cats. We like cats.
You agree with that?
So when someone asks, what's the best kind of pet your sister would like, we might say, it's a cat. Cat, totally. Because you think everybody thinks just the same way as you. We might think that I like a cat, so everyone will like it too. And we might believe that there's only one right choice for any child when it comes to what pets they like. And it's a cat, because that's what we love. Right?
But what happens if your sibling actually has a different preference, like might want something else? What's a different, this is one way, this latter way is one way we could make that decision, but what's another way we can make it, Princess? How could we help find the right pet for your sibling? What would be another way you could do it? You could do it based on your beliefs and your experience. What's a different way you could do it? Could be a puppy, but how could we get there? Yeah. Oh wait, Axel first, and then Nilo. Yeah. Asking them, right? So going back down where there's other information, we could ask them. That's a great idea. Would you have another one, Nilo?
If you don't want to ask them because you don't want to spoil it, try to look at how they do things.
Oh yeah, you could observe how they do things and what they seem to like if you don't want to spoil the surprise, which is a good thing in a gift. Yeah. Maybe get them a book and see which ones they seem to like. That's a great idea. So we start back down here. Instead of going all the way up here based on our experience, step, 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 we stay back down here by talking to them. And if we did that, we might have a different conclusion, which is what?
Then we might tell our parents, however they're going to decide, ask your sibling. And it might turn out that they like dogs.
Yeah. So it's just something to think about, that sometimes when we make decisions, it's really good to spend some time down here finding out, talking to people, and thinking about other people's experience as well as ours. And that is our story. So we're going to invite Scott to help us sing you to your classes today. And thanks for being such a great, helpful participants today.
As you go, may joy surround you. As you go, go in peace. Know our love is with you always. As you go, as you go.
Good morning. I'm still Les Polgar, and my pronouns are he and him. It's bright outside. Terrific. So let's start things off with a bang. How about a physics experiment? Where's the groaning? I know you're just thrilled. Here we go. It's called quantum fuzz. Ready? Okay. Did the book drop to the floor? Yes, yes. Are we sure? Yes. Yes, we are. There's no uncertainty here, no quantum fuzz. With 100% confidence, we conclude that gravity worked and the book dropped. Welcome to deductive reasoning, experimental fact, nothing fake. But we humans learn mostly not from experimental facts or proofs, but rather from inferences that we draw, cues. We turn the sequences of inference into a set of assumptions that help us to navigate life. Both the algorithms in our brains and in machine learning could not function without it. We have been hearing a great deal about the about artificial intelligence, AI, its promises and dangers. When it comes to learning, we have this in common with machines. We make an initial guess, an inference, an assumption. In machines, the initial guess is followed with more data, more guesses, really. Then it is trained and tested to check if the answer, the solution, the picture, gets better or worse with zillions of subsequent inferences. Think of when we get a new eyeglass prescription. My optometrist says, is it better now, 1, or 2? According to the IBM research website, and I quote, up to 90% of an AI model's life is spent in inference mode. 90%. The breathtaking progress in AI rests on several prior technical developments, but above all, the explosion in the amount of data to do the training, the testing, and learning. Cookies, anyone? I mean the website cookies, not Sue's delicious chocolate chip cookies. Let's get back to the beginning, to that first inference. You saw it as the first rung of the ladder today. Absent facts about a stranger, say a first-time visitor here, we humans look for cues: height, gender, skin color, clothing, hairstyle, facial expression, voice, and on it goes as we try to determine what to do, whether to engage or not. So we draw inferences, and we do this all the time. Whether we like it or not, we are profiling. If that first guess should actually be wrong, and only known later to be unjustified by facts that we do not yet know, there's cause for concern, because that's what bias amounts to. As an experimental physicist, I was taught to make the fewest assumptions possible when analyzing data. Assumptions are necessary, but making too many of them hides the true meaning of what we are measuring. That's science. Just 2 years into my first job as a scientist, I was drafted into sales and marketing. Both my PhD chemist mom and my dissertation advisor, Professor Friedberg, thought sales to be worse than prostitution. If assumptions were difficult in the analysis of scientific data, they were far more challenging in business. In trying to negotiate a sale, for example, I had to infer what my potential customer wanted. And that forced me to try to walk a mile in his or her shoes. What did they want most? Just a low price? Or might it be something else, a faster delivery schedule, perhaps an extended maintenance guarantee for this $1 million hunk of machinery? I would draw inferences from prior interactions about their needs and motivation. So how do we use combat bad inferences? How do we unpack the tangled web of intersectionality, so to speak? Our rational selves don't hold the answer because deductive reasoning doesn't apply. So I suggest that we need to rely instead on our faith. And our Unitarian Universalist faith indeed provides a path. The Unitarian minister and writer James Vila Blake, born in Brooklyn in 1842 and died in Chicago in 1925, provided us with guidance. His words are now actually part of our UUA Tapestry of Faith program for grades 4 and 5. You can find it at uua.org. For decades, it was the affirmation we said in unison each Sunday right here in this church. To be honest, as someone challenged just to transform my own actions, let alone the world's, I prefer it to its successor. Blake says this: love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. It is in that spirit, in these fractious times, that I call us to worship on this beautiful day.
We invite you to please rise in body or spirit to sing with us our congregational song, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire. The words to this hymn were written by Hal Hobson, an organist, composer, and choir director in Nashville, Tennessee. Text comes from Corinthians 13-1. Here we go. Though I may speak with bravest fire and have the gift to all inspire, and have not love, my words are vain, as sounding brass and hopeless gain. Though I may give all I possess, and striving soul my love profess, but not begin by love within, the prophet soon turns strangely thin. Come, Spirit, come, our hearts control, and Spirit song to be made whole. Let inward love guide every deed. By this we worship our freed.
This is a very special moment for us. We're going to welcome our new members, which we have not had an opportunity to do in a while. So I'm going to invite Mark to be over here with me. There we go. All right.
Membership in our free religious community is an individual act of affirmation and a testimony to the human spirit and its quest for wholeness. We gather here this morning to celebrate those who have chosen to join their search for truth and meaning to our community's journey in this sacred way.
The decision to become a member is a simple act with deep significance, and we accept you freely, openly, with trust, and in a spirit of reverent celebration.
And now I'll ask that the names of our new members be placed on the screen. And as the name of each new member is called, you're invited to come forward. This ceremony, which we really celebrate today, because it's such a gift in these times to know that there are still people entering in with enthusiasm to our community. That is, the name of each new member is called. You're invited to come forward. It's a reminder that all who genuinely seek to be among the fellowship in our religious community are welcome here. Let us have our list as we call those names. I need this slide with the names. It was just up. Oh, it's not up on the screen over there. Sorry. Emily Edelman, Lynn Boone, and if they're not here today, you can say welcome the next time you see them. Ella Borland, Michael Brucker. I know Michael's here because I saw him this morning. Thank you, Michael. Yay. Welcome, Michael. Welcome, and I'm going to have you stand right over there. You're going to be our first one. Thomas Kreiderman. B. Defner. Nicholas Deach. Phoenix Dover. Wes Fanhali. David Fitzgerald. I know David is here this morning. I fear that our storm got in our way a little bit. Good. Welcome, Dave. Good to have you here. So glad you're here. Josie Grant, Chris Heskey, Maria Hunt. Yes, I knew I saw Maria this morning. Welcome. So glad you're here. You're welcome. No, it's fine. There's different books. Glenn Youngman Kim. Marie McGuire, who I also know is here. Yes. Welcome. Welcome, Marie. Yes. Therese McCluskey. Radhika Mellon and Richard Mellon. We know Therese is here. Welcome, Therese. So glad to have you. Yes. Maria Moore. Hannah Navlo. Tioga Nelson, Kiona Newkirk, Brandon Peel, Andrea Quigley, and Jameson, who had to just go with the kids. So we know he's here, but we'll welcome him later. Fenella Robinson, Lynn Scobie, and Richard Scobie. Welcome, Lynn. Good to have you. Welcome. Welcome, Richard. Forrest Sinclair, Michael Stanfield. Welcome. Good to have you here. Welcome. Christina Steger. Chris Steger. We won't be formal with you, Chris. Good to have you. Thank you. And Bob Switzer, who was with us last week. So, all right. So let us... we celebrate those who bring their gifts, questions, and truths to help complete our circle. So I invite the members of this congregation to rise in body or spirit and join in the words of welcome to our new members, which will be on the screen. We, the members of the Mount Diablo Unitarian Universalist Church, welcome you to membership. We invite your full participation in the life of our religious community and in its service to our wider community. We honor your free choice to make the commitment of membership and to declare that you are part of setting the course for this beloved congregation. And now our new members, invite you to join. We affirm the community we join today. Its reverence for the past, its vision for the future, and its passion to live in freedom and wholeness in the present. And the challenge began with the size of that font. Sorry about that. Okay. So now, may these words and acts of welcome renew our covenant with one another and with our calling to bring our healing message to a hurting world. And may we go forth with greater resolve to give of our gifts and use our shared congregational life as a laboratory for living in this world from our legacy of love and unity. We invite you to greet our new members at the reception after the service, but let's welcome them. Yes. Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Mark.
Hi there, I'm Travis McPhee. My pronouns are he and him. And now is the time in our service where we come together to bear witness to those joys and sorrows that are too great for any one of us to hold alone. If you've written in our book of joys and sorrows today, please come forward to light a candle as I read your entry. I'm asking Reverend Leslie to light a candle in honor of Bob Hansen, whose life we will celebrate this Friday, February 23rd at 10:30 a.m., both here on campus and via live stream. Dave Fitzgerald is lighting a candle of sorrow for the sudden death of his daughter-in-law, Kimberly. We are all holding his whole family in our hearts, especially his grandchildren, Autumn, Christopher, and Benjamin, who grew up as part of this church. Les and Sue Polgar are lighting a candle of sorrow at news of the death of the Russian freedom advocate Alexei Navalny. Blessings on his spirit. And Laura Ransom is lighting 3 candles. The first is love and support to the family of Reverend Jan Ellier Isis, who passed away on February 14th. She and her husband Rob were my family's ministers at First Unitarian for many years. The second is support, love, and hope to my dear friend, Peter Andrews, who is undergoing chemotherapy for a lymphoma in his leg. And the third is joy that my beloved sister is coming to visit this week. And I'm asking Reverend Leslie to light 2 final candles. The first represents all of the joys and sorrows not voiced aloud today, but still present on our hearts. And the second, a reminder of this one imperfect and precious world, and our role in making it more loving and more just.
Please remain seated for our musical meditation. The words of this song were composed by Thich Nhat Hanh as a poem and then set to music by his community, Plum Village. Compassion springs from the heart as pure, refreshing water, healing the wounds of life, turning poison into flowers. One flower, 2 flowers, millions of little flowers appear in the fields, and weapons turn to dust from the highest peak of the mountain. The blessed water comes streaming down, penetrating rice fields and orange groves. The healing water is the same on a willow branch or in the heart. The leaves are still green, and the sunlight smiles on the snow.
Thank you, Scott. I invite you to join me in the spirit of meditation, in the deep ask of prayer, as we gather today to hold those things that we sometimes cannot hold alone. It is hard for us to be aware of the extent of some of the conflicts that are happening in our world today. It's something that's difficult for each of us to hold in its entirety, and so today we're going to hold them together. And before I start, With the spirit of prayer, I'm going to ask that we just simply allow ourselves to take in some of the data, some of the experience that's true around us. That 1 in 6 children now in our world lives in a conflict zone. That 39 children were among the hostages after the October 6th attacks on Israel, now released and yet living with the effects of traumatic stress. That in Ukraine, over 1,800 children are believed to be among the casualties. And that in Gaza, more than 10,000 children were killed by the end of October alone. And now it's estimated that almost half of the deaths of 28,000 are children. In Yemen, there are 9.2 million children who have been killed and an additional 11 million who do not have access to basic services. Let our hearts hear these truths. Let us take them into our collective embrace. Let us not turn away from them. For these children who have not contributed anything to these conflicts are not able to turn away. May our deep ask be together to remember that we are strong and loving, wise and caring, and that we have enough to be present and not separate from the world. That by turning towards the world rather than away, we will know ourselves to be more fully human, and we will know ourselves to be more fully part of the family of humanity. Spirit of life, holder of our deep dreams for ourselves and for our larger world, let us not forget these gifts that we have, and let us together remember to use them in service and action of our world. Amen.
Good morning. My name is Jana Contreras. I am a member of your Board of Trustees, and I use she, her pronouns. Just like the recent rains have transformed our brown hills to a vibrant, yet in my case allergen-filled, green, teeming with life, so too do our financial contributions to MDUC bring life and vibrancy to this community. Please join me now in giving so that we may sustain and grow the life and mission of this congregation. I invite you to go to our website, mduuc.org, and click the Give Now button, or place your offering in the basket as the ushers come forward. The ushers will now receive our offerings. Now please join me in the dedication of our offering. The words will be on the screen. To the work of this community in transforming ourselves and our world, we dedicate ourselves and all of our offerings.
Before I start with the message today, I want to thank Johanna for that beautiful music, and Scott for leading our hymns, and Travis for being here with me as our colleagues Marina and Rodney take a very deserved rest today. So thank you all for being here. And the other thing I will say is that I want to say hello to the folks online because I can't do it on the stream. I'm locked out of my account, so I'm saying hello to you now. We're glad you're here. I'm a big fan of the Buddhist concept of beginner's mind, and still I can't imagine how exhausting it would be if I didn't know, for example, that the people with the little name badges and red vests at Safeway are the ones who might know a little bit more about where the clam broth is. Or in my case, if I didn't know that leaving my plate for dinner too close to the edge of the counter for just a moment is likely to result in having to have oatmeal for dinner again. Beginner's mind probably won't convince my pups that they don't want a kitchen surf, so it can perhaps help me to figure out that my eating when they eat is not a bad strategy, since most of the time I personally prefer oatmeal for breakfast. Can you imagine how exhausting it would be if every single thing that we had to experience in every single day we had to do so without any prior information? It would be exhausting. And yet, sometimes, we rely just a little bit too much on what we already know or experience. And this is why we have prejudice and bias, and why sometimes we're embarrassed when we act out of assumptions. A common one that happens here about, I'd say, twice a year is when someone compliments a woman on being pregnant who is not, because they have seen other people with what they think is that body shape. Or someone assumes that someone who looks a certain way was not born in this country, or that someone that looks like many here was, when in fact they were not. So, this is where that kind of previous experience and information can get in our way. And it's also where a very brief examination of how we travel up and down what is called the ladder of inference might be helpful. It was developed by organizational psychologist Chris Arglis and used by Peter Senge, and probably spread through his book, The Fifth Discipline, The Art and Practice of the Learning Organization. It speaks to the ways that our old thinking keeps us trapped, repeating the same patterns again and again. So it starts, as Travis illustrated during our story, with our pool of data and experience. It's down here. We can imagine it being all of this down here. And then out of that, we select some piece of data when we encounter something, and we give it meaning from our previous experience. We say what we think it is, and then we make assumptions, draw conclusions, adopt beliefs, and take action. But sometimes, as we were talking about with our beloved children, we would do better to not leap up here so fast, but to spend a little more time down here in our pool of data and experience, again, not making, as Les said, too many assumptions. That's the experimental physicist view of all of this. On the Hidden Brain podcast, we hear the story of Abhijit Banerjee, who grew up on the edge of Calcutta in a middle-class neighborhood that bordered on one with less resources financially. His neighbors on his side of the street thought that the other children were just slum kids, and the teachers agreed in the way that they acted in their encountering the different children. They thought that Abhijit was destined to be brilliant, as both of his parents were economists. So when he was not doing so well academically in school, they immediately plugged in that information about him being the child of two economists and immediately moved up to their belief that he should be able to do well in school and decided that he might, in fact, just be bored. And so they promoted him a grade. He wasn't just bored. He wasn't paying attention, so that did not help. But they drew a conclusion. They took an action based on their beliefs. They did not have those same beliefs about the children that he fought kites with in the neighborhood together, his friends. Those children, they just saw and through their experience decided that they just weren't able to learn. They drew that conclusion, they made assumptions, they drew a conclusion, and they took an action, which was just to give them as few resources as possible and get them out of school. Though being promoted did not, as I said, improve his younger school days, Banerjee did go on to win a Nobel Prize in economics. So actually, in some ways, their beliefs were not wrong. He had it in him. He just wasn't going to respond in that setting. His work was on how to use incentives to help free people from poverty. And at first, as he relates, they tried to do it with education, to care as much about the people who were his childhood friends, to give them different assumptions than they did about people like him. The conventional wisdom was that more teachers would be better, so they doubled the teaching ratio. It didn't make a difference. And then they thought maybe it was about having teachers that looked or had similar experiences, so they gave, for example, the female-identified students, female-identified teachers. It didn't make a difference. But as Banerjee recalled, I remember being in one conversation where the other person said basically, these kids are so unteachable that you'll have to start at the beginning, reconstruct them in a sense to be able to learn. And I remember saying, no, these kids are just being taught badly, and if they were taught better, they'll learn. Banerjee and his colleagues continued to experiment and, he said, learned that, quote, if you actually focus on teaching kids who want to learn, in 2 months they make more progress than they made over the previous 2 years. And it's very much the conclusion, but you could have easily taken that understanding that the other people had, which is that these children are hopeless. The Buddhist teacher, activist, and leader Thich Nhat Hanh says, for things to reveal themselves to us, we need to be ready to abandon our views about them. Now back to our economist friend, Abhijit Banerjee, who said that throughout his career, what he's learned is that we have to sometimes not move up this ladder too quickly, not move up to where we are assuming that our previous experience, which does in fact inform us, in fact it was his experience playing with those other children and knowing how smart and strategic they were in kite fighting that led him to know that the other conclusions were wrong, right? He brought his experience there, but it didn't necessarily warrant going all the way up. He said some examples he gives is the AIDS cocktail, which was in a sense off-the-cuff reasoning. It wasn't deeply theorized. It was a set of things that might work, he said. People put them together, they tried it, it worked, and it saved millions of lives. Sometimes, he says, we can't come up with the perfect theory about something, but we have to try to do something about it. And for example, in the area of vaccinations, in his country of India, he found that trying to convince people the way that perhaps he might have been convinced or his family, which was by giving them more data on the number of lives that could be saved through vaccination, was not working. What actually worked was allowing people who came to be vaccinated by a certain date to get a 2-pound bag of lentils when they came to be vaccinated. He said it really wasn't the lentils. It was the idea that there was an incentive to do it by a particular time. Because if they didn't do it by a particular time, life got away from them and they just forgot to get vaccinated. And then they weren't. And that was how it worked. In a similar way, our neighboring city of Concord, where some of us live, has joined about 20 other communities in the Bay Area in offering a small guaranteed minimum income to 120 residents in partnership with the Monument Crisis Center. They're breaking out of an old pattern of thinking, which says that people who don't have much money just use money badly. They're paying attention to new ways of thinking, which say that many people who don't have much money are actually extremely skilled at using the money they have, if they have it, for food, shelter, medicine, and other basic needs. Which brings me back to Beginner's Mind and its merits. Thich Nhat Hanh, whose work as a peacemaker has been a solace to me in these last months, wrote, "We understand that fanaticism in its many forms is the result of perceiving things in a dualistic or discriminatory manner. We will train ourselves to look at everything with openness and the insight of interbeing in order to transform dogmatism and violence in ourselves and in the world." You know, if we think about our experience and we perhaps on that second step draw certain experiences out of our mind, we may think that what's happening in the world conflicts, such as in Israel and Palestine, really doesn't have anything to do with us, and that we can't really make any difference in what happens there. And yet, there are many, many people who watch with closer attention than I do, certainly, that say that that situation may now be the largest threat to the fate of democracy in this nation. And it's a moral issue of such vast expanse that no one can afford to not let their perspectives known. We cannot afford to be silent on it. For some weeks, I've been part of drafting a statement to my colleagues as part of my work as the president of the UU Ministers Association. Some weeks. Our statement has been tramped up and down ladders of inference with many, but most importantly with our colleagues of Jewish, Muslim, Arab, North African, and Southwestern Asian ancestry. We have mucked around there in the mud at the pool of shared meaning, and when it's issued tomorrow, it will call on ministers to educate themselves and bring our voices and actions and leadership to these horrendous tragedies, and especially to call for actions that will prevent any further loss of life. Now, when it's issued tomorrow, many will believe and make the assumption that it was composed in a few hours in response to the UUA statement, although we will, of course, reference that. It came out last week. While all those trips up and down the ladder will be unseen, and that is okay. Because what matters is that we challenge the idea that the only way for one precious body of people to be safe is to annihilate another precious body of people. And that requires a deep dive into the pool of common human meaning. The UUA statement gives clear moral and ethical position when it states, "The Unitarian Universalist Association joins the chorus of voices urging an immediate and total ceasefire, the admittance of humanitarian aid, and the restoration of power and water to Gaza to prevent the further staggering loss of human life that is inevitable under the current conditions. We support the call from the United Nations for the evacuation order to be rescinded, warning it will have devastating humanitarian consequences." The conflicts in our own lives, the polarization in our own families and friendships is caused by a rise in extremism, which happens when we just circulate there at the top of the ladder over and over and over again, never diving back to remember how we are common together. I think that we can easily misinterpret the rules in the world and go on simply like this, believing that we don't need to get involved. And one of the things I think that is informing us, one of the places where we're making a choice, is that we're remembering what it felt like in 2016, in 2017, in 2018, in 2019, in 2020, and 21, those difficult years. And we're saying to ourselves, we're making a view that some people made in 2015 and 16, saying something extreme can't happen again in our nation. But the reality is we know that it can. We need to look at what has happened and remember that our small little part, our small little light matters to get down off the top of the ladder of inference and muck around below, where we remember who we are and that we are a part of a global family of humanity. And with that little, tiny, inner spark within us, ask people to do what they can, our leaders, to do what we can, and to hold up our lamp of truth, no matter how inadequate it may seem.
We invite you to please rise in body or spirit to sing our closing congregational song, Be Ours a Religion. The music was written by U.U. Thomas Benjamin, retired teacher of theory and composition at the Peabody Conservatory of Johns Hopkins University. The words were written by Transcendentalist Theodore Parker, a reforming minister of the Unitarian Church in the early 1800s. Here we go. Be ours a religion which like sunshine goes everywhere, its temple all space, its shrine the good heart, its creed all truth, its ritual works of love.
And I will remind you that we will have a congregational forum, a reception first in the Borton Hall, and a congregational forum after at 12:15. And as we extinguish our chalice, let us do so with these words of John Murray. You may possess only a small light, but uncover it, let it shine. Use it in order to bring more light and understanding to the hearts of people everywhere. Give them not hell, but hope and courage.